A nation whose ancestry includes every people on earth, whose motto is E pluribus unum, whose ideals of freedom under law have inspired millions throughout the world, cannot continue to harbor prejudice against racial or ethnic groups without betraying itself. This sentence is from The Vision of Race Unity, a statement based on the sacred writings of the Baha'i faith, which explains that God's purpose for the human race is to unite and live together as one family. As Americans, our greatest challenge in achieving this goal of unity is to overcome the fear and prejudice that divide our citizens. We invite you to have a look at what Baha'is are doing to bring the different colors and cultures of America together to release the power of race unity. We'll profile 4 initiatives taken by members of the Baha'i faith to bring the races together in unity. Our first story is about Anissa Kentz, who, at the age of 8, founded Calling All Colors, a kids program to combat racism and prejudice.
Calling All Colors was first designed and still is for the purpose of letting kids talk about racism, the effects of racism, and how they feel about racism. And also, we have different activities so people can become more aware of what racism is, what stereotypes are, what prejudice is.
Do you think you might know whose hands these are?
No. Really, the goal of the conference is to make people more aware of the problem and how to help with the solution.
I would encourage anybody, especially high school aged people, black, white, male, female, whatever, to form within their own school. If you do not have a program addressing the needs of race and race unity in your school, then to work with somebody, find some way to get one established, because it's something that every school needs, some way to vent out their frustration, somewhere where dialogue can begin to get people together so they can talk.
Calling All Colors conferences have been held annually for 6 years in Conway, South Carolina, and in other school districts around the nation.
The first spark of interest and idea for Calling All Colors first came when there was a conference held about racism at the local college, and I was looking around and I said, you know, this is really nice, but where are the kids? It's really a kids' issue, because we're going to be the ones to have to inherit the earth, as some people say, or take over after a while. Then we need to know about this kind of stuff too and really be able to do something about it.
I was able to work with Anissa. She invited me to become one of the advisors or facilitators for the Calling All Colors conference, the very first one that they had. And she organized that effort with a few friends, but initiated all and moderated the entire program that was presented at the end of that day's experience, moderated it, and had a very captive audience. I don't know of anyone that young that could have perhaps undertaken the task or the adventure, the effort in Calling All Colors, except Anissa. She's our pride and joy for sure.
Racism is important, well, race unity, I should say, is important to me because I'm a Baha'i, and as a Baha'i, I've always been taught that we're all equal. And one of the main principles of the Baha'i faith is the oneness of humanity. And so to me, if we're all equal, then what's the point about fighting because we look different or because we act different?
Coming up next is a story of the Baha'i Youth Workshops, young people who use dance, drama, and song who are bringing a message of hope to their peers. But first, here are some basic facts about the Baha'i faith.
Baha'is believe that there are many names for God, but there is only one God, who is neither male nor female nor a physical being. God created us through the process of evolution and gave us spiritual qualities and the power to know and understand. Baha'is believe that God has sent prophets to all the peoples of the earth who are animated by the same Holy Spirit, reveal the Word of God, and teach the same faith. Race unity is the belief that we are all children of God and we can love each other as one family. The central purpose of the Baha'i faith is to establish the unity of the human race. The Baha'i community is more than 150 years old and has more than 5 million believers in 300 nations. The Baha'i faith has been established in countries throughout the world as an independent religion based on revealed Holy Scripture.
In other words, I don't want dead space between each act.
Oscar de Grue has spent the past 20 years teaching young people of different backgrounds to share the message of unity and harmony with their community. The fruit of his efforts is the Baha'i Youth Workshop. There are over 100 workshops in the United States and more than 40 in other parts of the world. Workshop members have the opportunity to experience the benefits of interracial cooperation firsthand.
Our kids need to belong. When you get to be a teenager in this society, you have to belong to something. You have to be part of something. We have a desire to do that. We're talking, in fact, they call them cliques, they call them crews, they call them posses, they call them, my homies. All these are terms for people that hang around and do something together. The workshop is the same kind of group that gets together to do positive things and using the performing arts as a means by which we gather together.
Well, I think on an individual level, it helps youth work on the issues that are everyday challenges for all youth. And they're able to do that in a form that's primarily spiritual. And the youth, come together from all these different backgrounds, and they know that the ultimate goal of the workshop itself is love and unity.
Ours started about little over 6 years ago. It has been a fascinating process. I have seen probably 100 youth go in and out of the workshop, over 100 youth, I'm sure. They come from very different backgrounds, very different academic levels. Some in college, some will never see college, some we're trying to push toward college. All different levels of maturity and commitment.
Now, don't get Tommy no props yet.
The thing is that when they performed, they looked real. And when they had, they were talking about racism and about the women's rights and all that, it just seemed, they were into it, It wasn't like a bunch of bull, that they were feeding people. It looked real to me, and that's what, caught me.
We're trying to love all humankind. A youth who comes in, doesn't feel judged, and there's not enough that can be said about unconditional love and support. And we do this thing in workshop called a friendship circle. And what you do is someone sits in the center and turns to each person, and you say a positive quality about them, what you see in them. And it amazes me that when we do this, even with ourselves, it's strange, it's foreign, like we're not used to hearing good things about ourselves. And but we think that's how it should be. We think we should be encouraging. We should be loving towards each other.
What I gained from being in a workshop is workshop has helped me a lot, helped build my character, helped me open up my mind, and has really helped me go out and communicate with other people that I would have normally not have went out and communicated with.
We are trying to show our audiences and the world that there's a lifestyle out there that's positive, that's healthy, as we believe, and that can be enjoyable.
We are one, flowers of one garden.
Coming up, the story of country music singer Dan Seal's courageous decision to have his video, We Are One, show all of God's children as members of one human family.
To achieve unity, we have to give up feelings of superiority of race, nation, culture, class, and sex that are the causes of prejudice. As we free ourselves from prejudice, we can treat all of humanity as our spiritual brothers and sisters. Unity does not require sameness and conformity. Unity means we must accept and respect differences of culture and race in the human family. Baha'is believe that God's prophets bring new social laws. Some new laws revealed by Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, are the complete equality of men and women, the agreement of science and religion, universal education for all children, a world language secondary to our native languages, and the elimination of the extremes of wealth and poverty. The diversity of the human family should be the cause of love and harmony, as it is in music, where many different notes blend together in the making of a perfect chord.
One of the ways I understand inclusion and understand race relations ties to the concept of making people feel like they belong. And while it's a simple word, it's a very complicated concept. And the interactions that I've had with the Baha'i community, both in their homes, because yes, I think we've become friends and been in each other's homes, as well as in public settings, I think includes very much a consciousness of helping people belong, not in the sense of being hospitable as a guest, but belonging, I think, in a deeper sense that that you have a place there, that you feel like you belong in the sense that it's like being at home.
We are one, flowers of one garden.
Dan Seal's video for his song, We Are One, shows the human race as one family through the faces of our children. American kids of Asian, African, Hispanic, and European descent play and live together in scenes reminiscent of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream for America.
It scared TNN, the national network. It scared country music television. And certainly there was a lot of hate mail that arrived at my office about it. But I think when it came down, everybody realized it was the right thing to do. And they played it a lot more than I expected.
I decided that since most of country music was white and most of country music was Christian, a lot of artists do gospel albums, that I would use my videos and try to be an example and try to talk about the concepts that I hold dear.
Let the walls come down, stand here together, we are one family.
For Dan and his wife Andy, commitment to racial unity extends beyond the stage and music videos to their neighborhood. Together with the Rockland Baptist Church, a black congregation, the couple has helped restore a long-forgotten slave cemetery.
It was a lot of people that decided that this was important and something that they wanted to do. And in fact, it was a member of Rockland Missionary Baptist Church that initiated and did a lot of the research and went back into the family Bibles and the oral history of the community and discovered the names of the people buried here, which was really so special.
It meant that our relatives or distant relatives were being remembered, honored, and set aside as having been most worthy as human beings.
It was a tremendous unifying force in Hendersonville. I think it's probably one of the first times that, in probably over 100 years, that a major undertaking with black people and white people was done together. And the repercussions are still going on. The unity and the love and friendship that we experienced here continues on.
The Rockcastle Slave Cemetery was commemorated on a day set aside as Race Unity Day. Some of the people who worked on the project actually have ancestors buried in the cemetery.
It was a great thing. We got to know and we got to love people that we ordinarily wouldn't have come in contact with had it not been for this project.
It is special for me, and it makes me have a lot of respect for people now. They are not like they used to be. I don't say white and black, I just say people.
We don't need to ever feel that the acts that we take as individuals don't change the world, because they do, even if they just change a small part of it.
Next, a program designed to help college students find their way across the racial divide.
The Baha'i faith is unique because its founder, Baha'u'llah, established in his writings a system of administration for the community. This plan has enabled the worldwide Baha'i community to remain united since Baha'u'llah's death more than 100 years ago. At the heart of every Baha'i community, local or national, is a spiritual assembly made up of 9 elected members. There is no clergy or priesthood in the Baha'i faith. Even the officers or members of the spiritual assembly have no personal power. All authority rests with the spiritual assembly itself. Baha'i spiritual assemblies are elected annually by the adult members of the community through secret ballot in an atmosphere of prayer. Nominations, electioneering, and campaigning are not permitted. Spiritual assemblies make decisions through prayerful and frank consultation, and their decisions are binding on the members of the communities. Their purpose is to find the truth of any matter brought to them, and if possible, to arrive at a consensus.
Well, I've worked with Baha'is in New York and also in the Chicagoland area and here in Detroit. And one thing that I've witnessed is that race is not important with the group, that other groups you could see segregation or different entities, but there's always tremendous diversity, tremendous exchange, a great deal of affection amongst the various races and genders and couples. And it's a very natural presence, ambience, I guess is the word.
Dr. Richard Thomas is leading one of the boldest efforts undertaken at an American university to overcome the effects of racial prejudice. He conducts a university-wide program to teach acceptance of diversity to the entire student body and faculty.
Well, for the last 25 years at Michigan State, I've been principally concerned about not only teaching about the history of racism, but because I'm a Baha'i, I've been also very concerned about how can I replicate some of the racial interaction that go on within the Baha'i community in the larger world. Okay, because I think it is a laboratory, one of the few laboratories in this country, in the world, where people from different racial and ethnic groups are coming together. I do that by getting students in my courses to work together.
How many of you felt that as a result of these sessions that you were beginning to feel sort of a sense of trust with the person of the other race, that you were able to maybe share some things that normally you would not have been able to share?
I found out that I know that we all have obvious differences, but there are a lot of things that we do have in common. Just like, I don't know, just various interests we have and whatnot.
We started out talking about, where we were from, like what type of families we came from, like how many brothers and sisters we had. Our first meeting really didn't go much farther than that. We just talked about the different areas we were from and like how things were where we were from. Our second group, we started talking about stereotypes and different things like that.
We discussed the first time we discovered race. That was kind of hard because we just talked about how it really depended on who you played with when you were little. How you were in kindergarten and stuff like that. That's what we discussed. We also discussed interracial dating, our views on it, how we felt about it.
We've talked about a lot of things, and we become friends in the group, and we have fun talking. We don't only talk about racial issues. We talk, about what we've done on the weekends, and just we've gotten to know each other real well, and it's been a lot of fun.
I don't know, like he said over there, it's like been a good experience because at least I didn't really have very many different races that went to my high school, so it's been a good thing to be able to get to know people that aren't in your race and that kind of thing.
People don't realize that there has always been a tradition of blacks and whites working together. And the reason why we need to understand that is that when we begin to try and solve the problems today, we need to know that we are building on a long tradition.
I think the main thing that he has helped and helped me to get a grasp of is the tradition. He calls it the other tradition, but the historical significance of the interracial cooperation throughout American history. And I think what that does is when you have an understanding of history, it empowers you to move forward.
Before the conversations and discussions within our group, I found myself really irritated with other races or whatever because I felt that they were just so much different than me, they just couldn't relate. But after talking to, one another, whatever, I realized that that's not true. We're just different in skin color, maybe a few cultural differences, but, actuality, we just are people. I think we've learned a lot from each other already. We met for dinner last week in one of the bigger halls. We met in Wilson and had dinner. And we were talking about segregation in class, and we talked about how, I never really noticed it, but when we ate dinner, it seemed like to the right of me, there were whites. To the left of me, there were blacks. But I think slowly we're changing it by, hopefully this project. We're taking steps to stop it, I guess.
The Baha'i writings explain that we are created to know and love God. Through this love of God, we are enabled to develop our spiritual qualities, and they empower us to love others. The highest achievement for a Baha'i is service to our fellow human beings. Baha'is believe that work performed in the spirit of service to humanity is worship of God. Families are the bedrock of the Baha'i community, and marriage is described as a fortress for well-being and salvation. The importance of educating children, intellectually, morally, and spiritually, is emphasized, especially teaching children to be free of prejudices. Baha'is strive to see the good qualities in others. Fanaticism and self-righteous judgment are forbidden to Baha'is, and they do not consider their faith to be superior to others. God has given every human being the right to freely search out and choose her or his own beliefs, and we have been given the ability to distinguish between truth and falsehood.
Baha'i has always been that disciplined group that we would always put between Baker and Harris Street, would really be the first group in the street. Because of the discipline and because of the interracialness of that group, we wanted to make sure that people in the world saw that harmony. And they've been leading the march now, I guess, for 7 years.
Reversing the drift of race relations in America requires us to see ourselves in a new light as a new race of human beings.
In the Baha'i writings, the statement, a new race of men will arise, the new race of men it means a lot to me because it means that it's going to be people who, it doesn't matter what I look like, it doesn't matter what you look like, we're all people. It's going to be people that it doesn't matter, well, I can't marry you because you're a certain color and you look a certain way, you dress a certain way. It's going to be people who are ethnically mixed. It's going to be people who are mixed in their ideas.
It could mean like when all the races start to become unified and we start to intermarry, then, we're not going to be black or white or Asian or anything anymore. It's going to be something completely different. It could be that on a physical level. But I tend to think about it in sort of a more spiritual level where when we rise up and transform ourselves, transform our souls so that we can see each other as human souls, as children of God, then we will be completely different people and we won't be these, encapsulated inside of a race beings kinds of things. We'll be these transcendent beings.
When you see a person from another race, that you think of them as flowers of one garden, that they're another flower.
A race of people who are spiritual warriors, who don't get their identity from the color of their skin, from how much money is in their pocket, where they got their college degree from, who their daddy was, any of that, but get their identity from their spiritual identity, from that unity that they find in recognizing that they're a spiritual creature.
If we can have a wholesale, transformation of human character and human perspective, we will have a new creation.
And this new race is going to have loyalty, first and foremost, you see, to the human race.
If they felt that they in their own home had enough food for them, but that their neighbor didn't, just as they wouldn't let their own child go hungry, they would stretch and they would
see to the needs of their neighbor. This is the new race of men that we're talking about, a race that would actually prefer his brethren or his sisters to himself.
Baha'is believe that we must all take responsibility for overcoming racism in America, and that deeds are more effective than words in changing our society from one that is divided to one that is united.
There was a girl in my school who I was talking to who was very interested in the idea of diversity and unity and diversity. And she was telling me how, you know, in her first few years at the high school, she was sitting in the cafeteria. And the cafeteria is like the place where you can see what is going on in the school. And our cafeteria was completely divided by race. There was a table that was all African American, a table that was all Puerto Rican, a table that was all white, a table that was all Cambodian. It was completely divided by race. And she was telling me one day she was sitting there eating her lunch, and she looked up, she looked around, and she was like, this is ridiculous. And so she got up and she went over to a different table, sitting with like people of all completely different race, and looked at her like she was nuts. She did it again and again and again, and so finally they were like, who are you anyway? Why do you keep sitting with us? You know, she introduced herself and she became friends. You know, I mean, and it seems to me like that kind of courage is the kind of thing that will enable us to have race unity in this country.
On the subject of racial divisions, the Baha'i sacred writings state, all were created in the image of God. God did not make these divisions. These divisions had their origin in man. Therefore, as they are against the plan and purpose of God, they are false and imaginary. Strive earnestly and put forth your greatest endeavor, for the accomplishment of unity between the black and white will be an assurance of the world's peace.
Look at us from outer space. It's one little spot, one little speck of dust floating around in the sky. Where's the them? It's just us. There is no them.
For more information about the Baha'i Faith, or to receive your free copy of the Vision of Race Unity Statement or the Baha'i Booklet, call 1-800-22-UNITE or visit our website at www.us.baha'i.org.